And so I guess my interaction with Roger is to initially start off with a brand. I think that was a little bit about me and him, getting a little bit involved in personal development and stuff. So when it comes to working with Persona from a recruitment agency perspective, I've introduced them to my HR team. I'm not a whole lot involved in that, but I think that's an ongoing relationship that Sophia has with my HR manager.
Okay.
Great. So you were actually a brand book client then before you introduced their recruitment team to your HR team, right?
That's correct.
Got it. So how did you hear about Persona first, and did they approach you? Did you reach out to them? How did you guys meet?
Well, one of their guys called me up and offered me a job in Apple. So, that's where it started.
And what happened next?
I didn't see a job fit for me, and that role was a little bit junior, so it was an interesting laugh at us having, I can't remember his name anymore. So then, while just talking with him, and then he thought it would be a good thing for me to meet his boss. Back then, his name was Roger, and I didn't spend a whole lot of attention on it. I didn't take that seriously. And I think through another conversation I was having with a colleague of mine, and he mentioned the same name again, Roger, that he had spent some time with this guy named Roger from Persona. So that got me excited to want to chat, and that's how it all started, I think, maybe about a year ago. So I just reached out.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just reached out to Roger, and so I told him about this experience that I had, with this comment I got from my colleague, and I said, hey, let's meet and see what's there. And so I guess we met maybe about 12 months ago, and we started speaking about what's next when it comes to careers, and I've spent a good 16 years in DHL. What's next? How do you develop yourself, and the stuff that you're really aching for from the inside. And we got into that nice discussion, and the brand book was given to me as a suggestion of to better understand myself. And that's
how was
the
process of how was the process of the brand book? It's sort of it seems really intense. What I understand. Oh. Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Oh, weird. I'm just waiting for him to dial back in.
Hello?
Hello? I think we lost you for a second.
Sorry, the line dropped. Yeah.
No worries.
You were saying?
I know. I'm just interested what your impression was of the process of doing the brand book. Was it what you had expected when you went into it? What was the experience like, and what do you think you got out of it?
Well, it was an interesting experience. I've never really done something like in the past. One doesn't spend so much of time with oneself, unfortunately, when you're busy with your career. So I found the process very easy because that's just how Roger is. So he made it very easy. He made it very personal. So I guess it helped me maybe open up a little bit more and become warm and friendly a little bit with him, and that helped, in identifying things about myself. So in fact, it was one of those longer processes. I don't know if we did it in reasonable time, but but me and Roger, I think we spent quite a bit of time, I must say. I think it took us a couple of months from the start point to the point I got my book. Only because we spent a lot of quality time, I think, talking and exploring. So it was a fairly personal process, which I can appreciate.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a couple people. It's sort of like something that you can't do on your own, although it seems like you might be able to if you spent the time. Like you said, you're usually busy with your career and you need someone else to sort of bounce ideas off. Does that sort of jive with your?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly the feeling.
Yeah. So you've got your brand book now. Have you? Do you feel like you've used things that came out of the brand book experience in your career or in your personal life after having done it?
Well, I kind of use it for all my elevator pitches these days. So, it's good to know, how do you exactly describe yourself and the things that you want when you're with somebody, as opposed to being all over the place. So I think to that extent, it has sort of shaped my 2 minutes elevator speech.
Mm-hmm.
So to that extent, I'm really happy with that. But that said, I think I've not used it in my career per se. But it's always good for me to know what I want and what inspires me. So I think that helps me look at what I want next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess there are many different applications for it, some of which seem much more internal in terms of navigating what you want, and some much more external, like you said, elevator pitch or media training.
Right.
Would you recommend it to someone else? Is it something that you would sort of, yeah?
Absolutely. I already have, in fact, to a couple of people.
Yeah? How would you sort of describe it if you were trying to explain what it was to someone else?
Well, it's really understanding what you are. It's spending time with yourself to understand what drives you. What are you really passionate about and what you really want. So in fact, the few people that I recommended to were people that were similar to me, but that I spent quite a fair bit of time in their careers. And a lot of them felt like me, like, you just turn on the switch in the morning and you're at it. And then by the time you get home, you're turning the switch off and you don't want to be at it anymore and you don't want to think about anything anymore by the time you're done in the evening. So I think it's making the little bit of time, going through this process helped me know a little bit more about myself, and that's exactly how I describe it to other folks.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested also sort of, if you had to feed back to Roger ways that it could be improved, what would you say would make it either more valuable or more easy or rewarding experience?
Well, that's a tough one, given that he's already really quite a great guy. I didn't expect the kind of time. I don't know. He had a really good memory, so which is good. So it was very rarely that he would not remember a conversation we had about something in the past. So that made it very, made it very personal. I don't know. I can't really find anything. And we had always had an out of office setting and always generally had a beer while doing it. So it was always, really calm and just a nice setting. So I don't know. I don't know if there's anything more I could suggest or help him on improving this.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested because, so you took the brand book, and even though the first time you got approached by Persona for recruitment, it wasn't quite right, you then introduced the recruitment side of things to your HR team. How do you see do you see a strong connection between the coaching element of what they do and the recruitment side? Is that sort of a clear link to you?
No, naturally, I think having so I didn't have a really good experience, of course, with a hunter calling me and offering me a job that was far junior. So I found that strange, but I would not have recommended Persona naturally to my organization. But I think why I did so was because I believed a little bit in Roger and Sophia and what they were trying to do. It's always, it's sometimes it's the culture and the principles that the company has that's a little bit more important to me rather than just the each and every employee, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So the reason why I made the introduction is I sort of believed in what they were trying to do with Persona.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested also because they're talking about trying to figure out how to make the brand book and other coaching services more palatable to organizations as well. Would it be something that you would refer to your HR team or other colleagues, besides the one you've already sort of referred personally, Would you, if they had sort of a corporate coaching program, would that be something that you would think about referring your company to?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah, part of
I see value in it.
Yeah. It's something that we're trying to help them figure out is sort of how do you communicate the value of this very personal, sometimes, exercise to an organization who might be thinking a little bit more rationally.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's not an easy pitch because it's very personal. So especially look at, I mean, my experience with this whole brand book. It's a lot about yourself as an individual. So where it might apply to a certain group of people within the organization, which I think you can pitch it through, especially with the senior management teams, in terms of because I think your personal branding needs to resonate a little bit with the company culture. In a sense, you know what I mean. So you gotta be in the same bandwidth, if you will. So the brand book can be shaped in a way to identify oneself with the corporate culture. And then I can see, you know, at least a wider application of the brand book to the management teams. Because the one I did with Virgin actually it's very personal. So it's a lot about me, and it's a lot less about the corporation or that I'm attached to and its culture. But I think if you could fine tune that to incorporate elements of the corporate culture into the brand book, I can see the interest.
I think, yeah, you're right. At a certain level of the organization, once you get to very senior management, has to be sort of an alignment of cultural values and personal values.
Absolutely, yes. That's probably something that I guess they can look at if you want to take this into the corporate setting.
Yeah. The other thing that we've been playing around with is sort of the words that they use to describe the types of people that they work with. And one of the terms that comes up a lot that I think is potentially confusing, or it's sometimes a dividing term, is purpose. Purpose-driven individuals, purpose-driven companies. And I've been asking people, you know, is that a term that resonates with you? Or if someone asks you, you know, do you feel like you're a purpose-driven individual, is that something that feels authentic?
Purpose-driven.
Yeah.
Purpose-driven. I don't know, actually. It doesn't, you know, no bells goes off in my mind when you say that.
Yeah. It's a difficult, It's difficult. I think we're trying to understand, because it's a term that, you know, Roger and Sophia have used with us, but I think the risk with it is that people feel like it's more about having a cause or having some sort of, you know, non-profit.
And that's the challenge with purpose and cause, right? Because you tend to put people more into a limbo rather than flashlights going off in their head. Only because it's far grayer. The moment you think about purpose, and for me, purpose came with cause. And that's a fairly gray thing for me. I mean, that's a whole nother challenge, right? And you don't want to get down that path. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if purpose is a good word to identify themselves with.
Is there another word that comes to mind? Because, you know, this type of exercise, I think, is right for a certain type of individual who's reached a certain point in their career where they're looking to find out why they do things, like you said, and almost engage a little bit more in direction. So is there another term that you would sort of use for this type of person who cares and who is interested in finding out more about their direction?
And I, there's one thing that I did realize myself doing in the last 15 minutes or chatting with you is I used the word personal a lot, and it was going through my mind every time I used it. I was like, hey, I'm repeating this word over and over again. But that's probably the strongest feeling that I have towards persona and the team is that in most of the encounters I had with them, the experience was very personal, was very genuine, and I'm a kind of person that I get attracted to those sorts of feelings. When you're personal and genuine, and I would wish that they would hang on to those words when they describe themselves.
Yeah, I think it's very it feels very authentic to their personalities. The risk, and I have to admit I'm from the U.S., so I'm a little bit less sort of naturally in tune to corporate culture over here. But we're trying to understand a little bit whether using personal in the context of organizations can be scary for some people.
Understood. But if you look at, I mean, from my perspective, at least if you look at the culture out here, it's a very people-driven culture. If it, corporates, most corporates are out in Asia have a fairly strong bond, or try to create a fairly strong bond with employees, because they try to keep it very personal. Even here in DHL, we spend a lot of time in activities to engage our employees, to want to get to know them personally, their families and what drives them and what really excites them and what their aspirations are. So I think being personal with employees here in Asia, at least for most companies, is maybe ingrained a little bit more out here than perhaps overseas.
So it's something that feels more natural.
I think because people out here generally wanna feel that that feeling of that you're real with them. It's as you said, it's authentic. It's not something that you're making up along the way. And that's something that I and my management team try to do as genuine as possible with our people, so that they feel like part of a larger family out here. So to that extent, I think being personal with our people is probably something that they're excited about, rather than feel that you're getting into their private space.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It definitely must depend on the organization, but it sounds like there's a real sort of desire for that way of working. I know we're at 10:30, so I just have like one or two more questions before we'll let you go. I'm interested, jumping back to your referral of the recruitment side of things, sort of how you described persona to your HR team when you referred them.
How did I describe them? Well, it wasn't very difficult, to be honest with you. I just told my HR manager to reach out to them. So, to be honest, it didn't do a whole lot to have to describe or convince her about it.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. And have you mentioned you haven't really been involved with that process at all, but do you know if they've placed anyone successfully at your company?
Nope. So to that extent, I think I've met them both in my office. Both Sophia and Roger came up here, and I tried to share with them a little bit of my expectations on some of the roles we were trying to hire. And I know it was a tall order, just given the industry that we're in, etc. But the answer to the question is no. So I think we'll give them a couple of roles, and no, I don't think they've successfully placed anyone.
Okay. Jason, you have any questions, follow-up?
No.
All right, good. I think we're good. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's hard to spare even 30 minutes sometimes, especially on a Friday morning.
No worries. I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. It's just budgeting season now for us, so it's, lots of work to do.
it is.
All right.
Take care. Thank
So it
you
was
so
good
much.
chatting with you guys, and all the best.
You too. Take care.
Yes, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.